and welcome back to the Sekimeiya Spun class. Spun glass, not class. A lot of crazy things happened last time. We kind of traveled through time, supposedly. And now we are just in a conversation where we were basically saying, alright, we searched through the whole tower, there's no one here that we can find. So you're saying, okay, either they've got access to the attic, or one of us is lying. But Shirya came in and said, there is another place where they could be. And that's where we left off. There. Shirya turned around and pointed at the elevator. Oh, inside the elevator? That's right. Nobody entered it, correct? Once again, nobody denied that. Could someone have been inside the elevator the whole time, hoping for us not to look inside it? Which floor is it? Should it be on? What kind of voice is that? We were the last ones to use it. We called it from floor 5 to test which floor it had stopped on when we followed it up. That's good. If it had been here, they could have come out as soon as we went up. At least we don't have to search this floor again. Anything wrong? Plenty. Wait a second. Following the out-of-place sigh, he walked up to the elevator and pressed the button to call it. After a few seconds, the orange light surrounding the button told us that it had arrived, and Sai immediately grabbed the handle. Let's see, I suppose. There's no way anyone's inside. They would have gotten out as soon as they heard people leaving the floor it was on. And if they'd still been inside, they could have pressed any floor button before this one to stop it earlier. He opened the door. It was empty. As we'd all expected. Oh, I meant to ask you something, Kate. The instructions inside detail that pressing the stop button will enable contact with an emergency line. Is that possible right now? No, naturally the alarm shuts that down. The line can enable communication both with the outside and the security room, but right now it's disabled completely, which I wanted to mention last time around as well, but didn't for some reason. There's no reason that should be the case. It absolutely makes no sense why you would shut that down. The only thing that you could possibly use to explain why you'd shut it down is that it's somehow connected to something else that needs to be shut down, and this just, you know, you can't just leave this elevator communication method on, so you have to shut it down as well, which I think would be very strange to, you know, wire it in a way that would be the case. But that's the only reason I can think of where that makes sense, because why would you turn off that? There is no way for anyone to escape through that. The only thing that does is endanger people who are locked inside. Anyway, I'll advise all of you not to press it. I know how it works, and it was one of the past attempts at trapping Sin in case one of their plans involved securing the elevator. If you press it as the elevator is moving, it won't move again until permission is granted from outside, and given communication has been temporarily disabled, I fear nothing could be done until the exit unlocks. My point exactly. The initial point was defeated in the end since we were obligated to inform people about how the button worked right next to it. That wasn't the original idea. Oh, so they... Okay. I mean... So basically, their plan was that Sin would, for some reason, press the emergency stop on the elevator. Why? I mean, to be fair, they didn't say it's a good idea. It was just the original plan. It was a horrible plan that was never gonna work, but alright, fair. That's scary. We'll keep it in mind. Anyway, given how long it took to get there, I was on the 5th floor. How about, though? I mean, the question is, can you press the emergency button while it's on a floor? Because, essentially doing that, you could lock the elevator in place so it couldn't be used anymore. Which, you know, at this stage for our cast, I can't see anything negative about that. It's an escape route gone for any perpetrator. You can tell? Yes, I've never used it, but it goes fairly slow. The seconds I counted matched up with the 5th floor it should have been on, assuming it doesn't take very long for the doors to close and to start moving. That would add 5 seconds at most. Which is what I added. I tried to open the door as soon as the button lit up, but since it didn't budge, it must light up before the inner doors open. But, as you said, if someone stopped it before I got here, it would have taken longer. Could it, for example, have been on a 3rd floor and been stopped on a 2nd by the culprit? No. that whole process would have taken even longer. If it wasn't on the 5th floor, the only way I would have gotten the time I counted would have been if the door had been opened before I called it. This is too specific to take seriously, but if someone had kept the door open upstairs and closed it a few seconds after I called it, it would have started to go down later than I expected. This would have made it seem like it was higher. And why would anyone do that, let alone know when you called it? No idea, I'm just saying it's possible. Is there a light that indicates that someone is trying to call it while the door is being kept open? No such thing exists. And it's incredibly unlikely that's what happened. So it was on the 5th floor, right? There's no point in thinking too hard about this. Incorrect. There's a very big inconsistency with the elevator having been on the 5th floor, but it has to do with something I haven't mentioned yet. I imagine someone else would have figured it out, though. What is it? I found it very interesting, and I wasn't going to comment on it immediately if you hadn't brought the elevator up. Let me explain what I heard. I was on the 3rd floor, waiting right outside the offices. Imagine my surprise when I heard the elevator moving. Wait, the elevator moved? Yes, did nobody else hear it? For the 3rd time, one of Sai's answers was received with silence. Personally, I hadn't heard anything. This is very strange, as I heard the elevator 3 times. Did not even one of you hear it? The 4th quickly came. Nobody else had heard it. You heard it 3 times and didn't follow it? Yes, I didn't know if it was going up or down, and we'd agreed to stay put. I also didn't want to take potential bait. It's unfortunate no light indicates that the door is open on another floor either. That would have let me know which floors it stopped on by counting the seconds as soon as I heard it moving. But 3 times? Surely something must have been happening. Who remained on each floor above me? Erina and Isla remained on the 2nd floor. Apparently you heard the elevator from the 3rd. Akaro stayed on the 4th, Atsuki and Shiraya on the 5th, and I went up by myself to the 6th. And when you went down, everyone was still on their appropriate floors, correct? Yes. A lot of things could have happened, but some people here have to be lying. After 3 trips, no matter where the elevator initially was, anyone could have gone to a different floor and back to their own. Yes, 2 trips would be required, and the 3rd one could have been them calling the elevator for the 1st time. That's wrong. Such an order couldn't have happened. The elevator was on the 5th floor, right? I could have only heard someone who'd called it from under me. If Akaro had called it from floor 4, I wouldn't have heard it. So if Erina and Isla called it, and then I heard it 2 more times, the elevator would have stopped under me. Oh, yes. If you heard it from floor 3 2 times, once it was below you, it would have stopped on either floor 1 or 2. And right now I just determined it was on the 5th, and that couldn't have happened. If anyone above me used it, I wouldn't have heard them calling it. The strange thing is that I heard it 3 times, and I'm sure of that. This is the big inconsistency I was talking about. Even if someone above me used it, it would not have ended up on the 5th floor since I heard it 3 times. It was there initially, right? The first trip was the elevator going down, then it went up and then down again. There's no other combination that works, of course, yet the elevator ended up above me. We were a bit speechless, unaware of how to take all that. The elevator time traveled. Erina, Isla and Akaro, are you sure you didn't hear the elevator even once? I didn't. Me neither. But the first time was almost unnoticeable, so it's easy to think we missed it. We were very far from it. I'm sure I didn't hear it either. But how strange is that? I heard the elevator 3 times, so it must have been on floors 4 and 2 also 3 times. Be honest, are you just making this up? I'm sure I would have heard it at least once if it went through the floor I was guarding that many times. There's a way you would have missed it only once, but it's almost as unlikely. What are you talking about? You're right in saying that the elevator couldn't have been on floor 5 initially if you heard it 3 times. This means that if that really happened, it must have been on floors 1 or 2 at the start. As an example, it could have been on the 2nd floor, and the first time it was used it went to the 4th. Then from the 4th it went to the 2nd, and from the 2nd it went to the 5th. Just now, what told us that the elevator had arrived was the button lighting up. We didn't hear any sound. So if it stops on your floor, you won't easily notice it. So Erina and Isla couldn't have noticed it at all, and Akaro would only have had the chance to notice it when it went to the 5th. And we wouldn't have heard it either when it stopped on ours. Hang on though, this doesn't explain anything. Nobody got off on my floor. Yeah, I'm certain nobody got off on ours either. We were next to the partitions, keeping an eye on the elevator from a bit away. We might have missed a button lighting up, but not someone getting out. Yeah, I get that. This means that whoever was inside the elevator didn't open the door when they came to a stop. And what would the purpose of doing that be? They're only alerting us that they're moving. I don't know. But understand that you hearing the elevator 3 times already confirms that someone moved the elevator before we began the search. It's confirming the presence of a 9th person. It couldn't have been on the 5th floor, right? It was on one of the first 2 floors. Why would the culprit move it like that when it's only telling us that they're here? Maybe it really was on the 5th floor. It's not completely impossible. You heard it 3 times, Sai, and that put it below you. When we all came back here, the culprit got out and sent it up to the 5th floor before we called it. We wouldn't have heard it no matter where it was. It could also be that it moved 4 times and you missed one. That would solve everything easily, excluding who moved it, of course. You know what I find to be the most likely scenario? That you're all deaf. These situations you're all presenting are ridiculous, so let me detail what probably happened. When I entered the storeroom and found the Sekimeiya, the rest of you remained in this hallway next to the elevator. Someone, probably Kate, must have called it here knowing it'd be unnoticeable. Excuse me, are you blaming me again for something that doesn't make sense? Yes, it could have been Akaro, Atsuki or Shiria, anyone who later searched above me. There could have been a reason behind that would give off the illusion that it was impossible for anyone above me to have used the elevator. I don't know. But this relies on knowing that we'd separate through each floor, our positions, and that you'd hear the elevator and not follow it. Yes, which is very unlikely, right? It's also possible a hidden culprit moved it down before our search started. But the truth of the matter continues being that we looked through this entire building and found nobody else. The sound we heard is no confirmation of anything. I'll continue. Once we were all set, Kate used the elevator. He first called it up to the 6th floor. That was the first time I heard it. Then he took it down. Nobody saw the elevator stopping on their floor, but that's fine if he stopped here. I heard it 3 times no matter what happened, so that means that it must have gone down at least once. Since Aaron and Isla didn't see anyone coming out of the elevator, the times it went down must have been to the crystal floor. Afterward, Kate took it back up to the 6th. He knew it should have initially been on the 5th, so he sent it back there. That's not at all what happened, and I'm sure I would have noticed that the elevator wasn't only 1 floor below due to how long it would have taken to arrive. I just can't wait to show you the security footage once this is all over to see your stupid face. I also really don't believe we would have missed the elevator 3 times. Shira is right. It might have been a faint sound, but we were paying attention right next to it. I agree. No way we would have missed it. All I can say is that we didn't hear anything and that nobody stopped on the 2nd floor. It's very clear, right? He's just making this up. Most likely. The elevator was where it should have been after all. There's probably no inconsistency. Just in case. All of you take a hearing test after we are. At least one of you has to be lying, that's for sure. According to what you heard, someone got off here, right? Yes, and we know what the reason would be. We didn't lock the cabinet the last time, so someone must have realized they had an easy way to the Sekimeiya. Let's see if it's there then. If it's not, that'll give you some credibility. Of course. We're in front of the stairs, so there was no reason to hurry. Let's see what we find. That time, all of us went to the event room. We just looked through every single floor, and even though some things still didn't make sense, it felt pointless to guard the exit. We entered through hallway A. As soon as we set foot inside, the status of the Sekimeiya became apparent. See? It's still here. Nobody came down at all. That's what I thought. You're just trying to have a bit too much fun. That's true, but I did definitely hear the elevator, so I'm not sure what happened. They might have had another reason to come here. I'm confused. You think it was one of us or someone we still haven't found? Who fucking knows? If it was one of us, it could only have been someone who searched above me who's still lying. If it was someone else, the way it could have happened is a very tight one. Unless someone is still working with the culprit, they would have had to be inside the elevator from the beginning. The elevator must have been below me and not where it had been left, but then the elevator movements become useless. You might just be mistaken about the goal. Yes, if they wanted to come down here, there was no reason to ever send the elevator up. It's not likely that the culprit wanted to remain on this floor though. It's possible the elevator trips that you heard entailed going up to the attic. That would be the only way they would feel safe, and it would explain why nobody saw anyone getting out of the elevator. So, the culprit was in the attic, which is why we didn't find them on any floor. From there, they called the empty elevator up, went down once, and finally back to the attic again. That it? Maybe, but I have no idea what the purpose would be. They also would have sent it to the 5th again. It would explain why we didn't find anyone, and nobody would have to be lying. You'd all still be deaf, and why would the culprit come here from the attic if they'd been here just minutes prior? They would have been who made the noise we heard, right? This also sounds very risky. If anyone from below had entered the elevator before they'd called it up, they could have made it to the attic without the need for the key. Oh, yes. So, creating a theory that doesn't involve any of us lying is very hard. And conveniently, we know of someone who's been lying from the beginning. Talking about yourself or Aski? I'm not sure what to think anymore. If the Sekimeiya is still here, there's no reason to come in such a risky manner. Unfortunately, even though I was allowed to reason things out with time travel in mind, it didn't make them any easier. The issue of the motive was just as hard to settle despite the fact that I could create even more theories. For example, I could suppose that the culprit had been inside the elevator on the crystal floor and had gone to the attic. Then the same culprit had time traveled to the crystal floor. They'd wanted to go to the attic again, so they'd called the elevator and gone back up. It would have been very risky for them, but it was another way to justify the likely truth of being lied to. Sai looked at his watch and turned his wrist to show us the time. It was 11:20, and right above it the date was also shown, the 15th of December 2011. It's been a pretty eventful couple hours. I wonder if we'll be able to figure everything out before our time runs out. Who cares about that? The police will investigate what happened a lot better than we can. We shouldn't keep overstepping this much. They'll definitely question all of us. Not every camera works, so their understanding of what happens here will depend pretty heavily on our testimony. Isla, whose presence had greatly diminished over time, was mindlessly looking at the Sekimeiya through the glass. Her friend's prediction had been entirely incorrect, so upon seeing that her mood was wearing down, Erina made an attempt at comforting her with reassuring words. Right as the atmosphere had seemed to calm down a bit, something that we'd already lived through repeated itself. What the hell was that? I think it was a door closing again, but slightly quieter. We hadn't had time to rest. We knew that a foreign sound implied another long search if we didn't get results immediately. Since it hadn't come from close by, we didn't rush out like the previous time. Instead, Sai approached hallway A and opened the door. We can see the exit from hallway A. Splitting up appeared useless the last time and only brought us more questions, so let's remain together while making sure the exit's being guarded. We'd all rushed to the right door the last time because we'd all somewhat felt as if the sound had come from hallway B. However, the orientation of the last sound had been harder to discern. We'll stay next to the stairs. Isla didn't object. She'd already understood the seriousness of it all. Then the procedure of opening every room started once again. Since the sound had been distant, it was very possible the source was no longer on our floor, but we couldn't increase our speed, as many rooms contained cabinets big enough to hide a human body. Every door in hallway A was opened and closed until all the rooms were acknowledged as empty. Since Erina and Isla were by the stairs, we moved on to hallway B after Akro claimed the mechanical room was vacant too. We didn't grow complacent despite quickly running out of rooms. The previous time, that same situation had hit us with a sudden dead body. The event room, acting as the midpoint of the hallway, still stored the Sekimeiya. If the culprit remained with us, they were trapped within the few last rooms. However, nothing was found inside them. The room where Naomi had died, the last crystal rooms, the staff room and the cleaning room were all devoid of life. How does this keep happening? There must be someone else here. Maybe it's a ghost? A ghost, huh? That would explain a lot. Except for the existence of a ghost. It's been 2 times we've heard a noise, so it's clear a person has caused them. Isla's perspective was understandable. We were chasing behind someone who could vanish, make sounds without being seen, commit crimes in front of security cameras, and create uncountable questions. Do we actually have to investigate upstairs again? Why don't we stop playing with the carpet and let the police handle this? Because I'm not fond of that idea. They made a sound twice and then disappeared. They must be conscious of what they're doing, so let's go up again without splitting up. We'll leave the elevator open here so that they can't use it. Wait. We're forgetting one place again. Are we? Oh, right, the bathrooms. That's true. Nobody could have left them yet. The map indicated that the left door was the women's and the right one the men's. We walked to them while Erin and Isla kept blocking the access to the other floors. Julia went ahead and opened the women's bathroom, where all we saw was its emptiness. Then Sai grabbed the opposite knob and turned it to open its door. He seemed to be having trouble. I don't think I can open this. What? Is the door locked? It could be. You can lock it from the inside without a key. Are you sure it's locked? Try turning it the other way. Sai didn't even try it. He was clearly sure it wouldn't open and started to think about the implications of what Kate had said. There's someone inside? I suppose there must be. Hey, open the door. You don't have any way to escape. We'd all seen what was behind that door. There was nothing that could serve as a way out, so even if someone inside intended to wait, the police would end up breaking the door down. Sai crouched, trying to see through the lower gap of the door. There's barely any space. I was hoping I could see shoes or signs of a person. Can you open the door for us, Kate? Now that you mention it, I might be able to. There was a keyhole next to the doorknob, indicating that it was possible to unlock the door without the manual inner lock. There's a key that unlocks all the bathrooms. We're given it in case an accident happens or someone locks themselves inside for too long, but I've never used it. Which also means that someone with that key could have locked the door from outside. Yeah, so it's not a guarantee that someone is still inside. Every employee should have a key. I'll go check if I can find one in the security room. I think I recall seeing it in a drawer. Okay, we'll wait here. Kate went off to hallway A while the rest of us remained in front of the door. I'll bring this to the security room. I don't want it to stay here. On his way, he grabbed the empty suitcase and disappeared with it. Well, we don't know if it was actually still empty. We didn't check it this time. Taking it might have been a good idea because it would make it harder for the culprit if they wanted to retrieve it at some point. So if there's nobody inside, it'll mean that Naomi's killer likely took the bathroom key from her alongside the cabinets. And you think Kate did it, right? If I had to pick somebody, it would be him. I wonder if he had the key on himself the whole time and will act as if he found it in the security room. Didn't he ask earlier to search everyone for a key? We could have found it. Yes, but at that point the store wasn't locked yet. He might have not known that he'd use it later, and even if we found it, we wouldn't have known its purpose, and he could have claimed it as his own. But he couldn't have been the one to lock it, right? That must have been related to the sound we heard. He definitely had a chance. It's likely someone above floor 3 took the elevator here, remember? Kate was on floor 6 and is the most likely person to have killed Naomi. He just said that every employee is given this key, so whoever locked the door might have gotten it from somewhere else. That's true, but everything keeps placing more and more suspicion on Kate. First, let's see if anyone's inside. If we don't find anyone, Kate will be the most likely suspect once again. Why do you think so? If he locked this door, even if nobody's inside, he must have been trying to hide something. He wouldn't have told us how to unlock it. Assuming he comes back with the key, the other likely possibility is that this was done by an unknown culprit who keeps escaping from us, so maybe they locked this door with the key they took from Naomi for the sole purpose of making us lose time in front of an empty bathroom. It's the smell again. The smell? Oh, you're right. It's faint, but I smell it too, the same as before. You say that, but I don't think it ever faded away. I kept noticing it slightly as I looked through the rooms. We all visibly smelled the air. I didn't notice it greatly, but it somewhat resembled the strange smell from before. Shortly, we spotted Kate coming from the hallway. As soon as he made eye contact with us, he showed us he had something in his hand. It was a silver key. I was in some shock the first time we noticed it, but I feel like I've smelled this before. Really? I don't feel that way at all. I think it's this one. It's not like any that Naomi had. No, of course not. This doesn't mean that her key must have been stolen, if that's what you're thinking. I doubt any employee would keep it on themselves with how rarely used it is. Fine, just try to open the door. Kate sighed and introduced the key into the little keyhole. It turned, indicating that he'd picked the correct one. The door made an unlocking sound, and Kate proceeded to place his hand on the knob to timidly open it. Once we saw what awaited inside, all of us stood stock still, failing to comprehend what we were looking at. What the fuck? This is impossible. We all must have experienced a strong feeling of déjà vu. Is it Naomi's dead body? On the floor of the men's bathroom lay Naomi's unmoving body. Thank you. Instinctively, Erina ushered Isla aside, but she had already seen what was in the room. Why the hell would anyone lock her body in here? Lock her body in? Didn't we just look at it a second ago? She was right. We had entered the room where she had died, and we had seen her. Or had we? Had we perhaps only seen the curtain that should have been over her? Everyone else was likely thinking the same, but Sai instructed us not to rush. Hold on. We can see that room from here, so there's no point in running to it. There's no security camera in the bathroom, so we need to make sure we don't miss anything right now. It felt like a pointless attempt, but I crouched to check Naomi's pulse like Sai had done the first time. I felt nothing. What are you doing? Did you think she might have revived? No, but this is strange. There should be a bit of blood oozing from her, shouldn't there? But there's none, and the floor, it's completely clean. What? You're right, there's no blood at all. At least this confirms that the lock wasn't set from the inside. Someone locked her in with the key. There's nothing else here. We need to check the other body. We all ran to room B4, except for Erina and Isla, who stayed guarding the bathrooms and inside of the stairs. In hallway B, in front of the event room, Naomi had died. We left her body under a curtain to preserve her dignity. Sai forcibly opened the door. In very quick succession, another impossibility immediately appeared before us. The cloth's sides had been tainted by blood, which was all around it. In the middle of the huge red circle was a bulge the size of a human. It can't be. She's still here. We couldn't form a response. Her body was still beneath the curtain. It appears Atsuki was correct then. Something very out of the ordinary is going on. Sai ran out of breath at the end of his sentence. Not even he could easily fathom it. He approached the body and gently removed the curtain from it. The result was what we'd expected, yet it still seemed impossible. Naomi's dead body hadn't moved in the slightest. What the hell is this? Kate, let's get this out of the way. Does Naomi have a fucking twin? Not that I know. I wasn't close enough to her. A twin wouldn't explain this. Look here. Her suit had a product label by its neck containing 4 numbers. 6322. Was it the same in the bathroom? Yes, I saw it when I felt for her pulse. Kate, is that just a model number or something? It isn't. Those are individual product run numbers. Then this is the exact same suit. So there's no doubt that Atsuki was telling the truth. The culprit must have used the Sekimeiya's powers to do this. Kate could no longer deny it. 2 identical dead bodies had appeared before him. The Sekimeiya was still in the cabinet, so they must have returned it there. Alright. According to you guys, the Sekimeiya made Atsuki time travel. How would traveling through time lead into this? We don't know how it works. There might be more to it than it first seemed, but just consider this. What would happen if you tried to make a dead body time travel? Also, he said how would time traveling lead to this? What he's not considering there is that Atsuki actually appeared twice in like a given time frame where it overlapped. He was definitely there twice because Shiria spoke to past Atsuki and future Atsuki in close together. Atsuki didn't see himself, but he was there twice somehow, so the dead body being there twice would be consistent with that. However, yeah, just it doesn't continue. It's just however, I don't know. Actually, the past Atsuki disappeared the moment that future Atsuki had reached the time where past Atsuki time traveled. Which would mean that Naomi's dead body, the original dead body, let's call it past Naomi, should also disappear from the time on that her dead body time traveled. I don't know what the hell is going on, but that's my assumption currently. Normally you'd think nothing would happen, but what if the dead body actually traveled through time? Yeah, the culprit might have made Naomi's body time travel by touching it with the Sekimeiya. If they knew Naomi would appear in the bathroom, they could have locked it preemptively. If not, maybe they just moved the identical body inside and locked it. That must have been related to the noise we heard. An identical body. We should inspect it more thoroughly. We don't know what happened, but that other Naomi might hold something of importance. We didn't have much else we could do to figure anything out, so we went back to the bathroom. The other Naomi hadn't moved. Let me check. I kept a good look outside to make sure he couldn't do anything in secret. All he did was check every pocket and they were all empty. She doesn't have any keys, not even the keys that the other body had. So that theory was probably wrong. If by traveling the culprit created an identical body in the past, it would have had the same keys. What if? Did they check the bathrooms before? I don't remember. What if the body with the keys is actually the one that time traveled? What if I mean, that wouldn't make sense with the blood now, would it really? Okay, never mind. Yes, if that's how it worked, I'd think so. Couldn't the culprit just have taken them? But why? They didn't take them from the original body. There are two more things that don't hold up. The clothes are the first. If Naomi's dead body traveled to the past, her clothes would have been stained with blood, just like they were at the time it traveled. And second, you all saw me vanish when I traveled, right? If the same thing happened to Naomi, the first body should have disappeared, unless we were still within that time frame. Technically, with how little we knew, my points could have still been refuted. What if the replica of the body only takes into consideration the state of the body in the past? With the way I traveled, I couldn't be sure if my then present body had teleported into the past, or if the body I'd appeared in had been identical to how I'd been at the point I'd appeared. Good point. If Naomi had gone back to the past far enough, to a point before her death, her clothes might have been clean. Even though she was alive at that point, if the body that had traveled had been dead, she probably would have appeared dead in the past, otherwise she would have come back to life. Which we also technically can't count out. It also implied that the body had been with us in the tower since before we'd found the first one and had only just been shown to us. Given how we'd been unable to find the culprit, it couldn't be ruled out. Is there another way to make this work? I thought of a few things involving time travel, but now we have no other choice. There's nothing else that could begin to explain this, so my prior experience must be in some way related to the truth of what happened. This body is dead, but there's no blood around it. Could it be that she appeared dead from the future, and that's why no blood is anywhere? That her body is as it was when she was alive, yet her true state is from after her death? The only other thing I can think of slightly contradicts my own experience, but it would sound more believable, if not from my own experience. It would only require the past to be changeable. It didn't personally change anything when I traveled back in time, but that's not enough reason to think that's impossible. What if Naomi traveled back in time when she was alive? Two of them would have existed in the past. Then all the culprit would have had to do would have been to kill both of them. Also a good point, and seemingly possible, although very, situational. This sounds like a problem because fundamentally this should never be possible. It would be a paradox. By killing the Naomi who will travel to the past, you're making it impossible for the new one to exist. But I don't know if these kinds of paradoxes exist. What if Naomi's actions upon traveling made it impossible for her initial self to travel? Two of them would permanently exist at the same time, and us finding two dead bodies would work. yeah, that kind of leads into what I was talking about earlier, where, you know, that turnover point where future Naomi traveled back in time hasn't happened or couldn't happen. He just went a bit further with explaining, you know, that it couldn't happen, whereas I was more on the line of it hasn't happened yet. But obviously she's dead, so it's not gonna happen unless she time travels back as a dead body, which would contradict the point of her traveling back alive. However, if this isn't a possible occurrence in our universe, I can't think of anything else. The mere fact that traveling makes your body instantly disappear means that without paradoxes, two of the same person couldn't exist at once as corpses. To circumvent the paradox, I can think that perhaps a dead body can travel to the past and create a new dead body. This still hits the barrier of the original body should have disappeared as soon as it traveled, but it's not absolute. Maybe the first dead body will travel back in the future, and that's why it's still there. That is now exactly my point that I made before. And on top of all of this, there has to be a motive for all of this to be happening. For a culprit to create this mess, to kill the same person twice, and for something with time traveling powers to be publicly exposed in this place. Is Sin actually behind it? Nobody had said anything in a while. We were all dumbfounded, staring at the impossible image. Huh, that's interesting. She has a bump on the back of her head. It's similar to her other body, but blood's not coming out of this one. Is that so? And this body isn't the same as when she was alive, despite the lack of blood. Let's go test it. Let's try to understand how the Sekimeiya works. Hey, stop! But Sai kept running toward the event room, housing what we believed to be the center of every mystery. None of us wanted to stop him, instead we ran behind him, forcing Kate to follow us. We entered the room at the same time and saw the Sekimeiya still in the cabinet. It's good that we didn't lock this, only the culprit has the key, so it only hurts us. Sai, you'll get all of us in trouble. What might get us in trouble is the murderer that's somewhere in this place. If something happens to the Sekimeiya, it'll be their fault. He proceeded to scroll open the glass and took the Sekimeiya out. We stared at him as he held it in his hands. He kept a nonchalant face and there was no reaction. Nothing? Maybe I just cloned myself in the past. Who's to know? I'm clearly still here though. Without asking, he dropped it between my hands. It was really cold and it didn't send me anywhere. Its color wasn't changing either. I don't understand it. Maybe the Sekimeiya didn't do anything and something else is the actual cause of this phenomenon. But it changed colors, right? Both when Atsuki touched it and when we put it here. Let's keep it outside. We'll see if it happens again. I won't allow that. I couldn't stop you from getting it out, but you only proved that the Sekimeiya isn't at all related to what's going on. Put it back in. Kate, are you stupid? Mind if I go poke Naomi's body with it first? Something could happen. You're losing your mind. That would be beyond disgraceful. Kate took the Sekimeiya from my hands and put it in its cabinet. Oh, that's us. Oh, I might have realized something. What is it? It's not directly related to Sekimeiya, but I just remembered something when you mentioned touching Naomi's body. They all waited for me to continue and reveal something important, but I wasn't sure if I was right. Instead, I took off toward the room with the original body of Naomi. I was followed in. Inside, I kneeled beside the body and looked around it. Oh, what are you doing? Good, it's still here. I showed them the results of my successful search, the keyring we'd found in one of Naomi's pockets. What about this? Do you know what they're for? Oh, of course, this big one. Yes, I think it might be the key to the attic. Are you serious? I am. We saw the keyhole upstairs and it needed a big key like this one. The hole is also found inside the elevator, but you can't draw the shape of the key from it, so I understand why you didn't notice it. Oh, what do you say, Kate? Honestly, I can't tell. He could be right, but I'm not sure why Naomi would have it. So he could have access to the attic, where the culprit might have been hiding all this time. Not only that, if I'm right, we've had access for a while. We could have entered it during our last search. But I can't just think we would have easily found the culprit. First, it would mean that the culprit has another key, Second, that they hid there knowing we had access to it. Third, that they didn't take this key from Naomi. And yet, the one for the cabinet was taken. So maybe they don't care about us going to the attic? This doesn't matter. Let's just go see if it's the right one. I removed the key from the set and was about to exit the room. That was until Shirya made us aware of something. Is Akira not here?